Good morning. Darn it, not good morning. Hello. Thanks for joining today. My name is Jess Arce, and I'm going to talk about dyslexia. Dyslexia is a learning difference, not a disability. I myself am dyslexic. I am the mother of 3 dyslexic children. I am the daughter of a dyslexic who was diagnosed in the 40s at Yale University. When in 2011, I self-diagnosed myself as being dyslexic. When I was in school, I was labeled as having a reading disability. Well, that made sense once I knew what dyslexia was, that's what caused my reading disability. I also discovered that my husband that I had married was also dyslexic. So it made sense that 3 of our 4 children would be dyslexic. And my 4th child, who isn't dyslexic, is on the spectrum. So all 4 of my children have neurological differences. In 2011, I became a dyslexia tutor because I started helping my own children. And other families asked me to help their kids too. The year I started helping my children was the year I started homeschooling my youngest son, who was dyslexic. And when we left Texas, my son's teacher told me I needed to learn how to teach him in the way he could learn. I said, well, if I'm going to be homeschooling anyway, I might as well teach him the best way he can learn and not just try to teach him the way I wanted to teach him. So we began our journey, and initially I was supposed to go away for a summer to get trained through the Orton-Gillingham program that my kids learned in school. However, when we moved to Las Vegas, there was no way I could leave my children after we had just moved back. So I backed out of the training program I intended to participate in. And at that point, I just figured something else would work out. And sure enough, it did. I went to a homeschool convention in Las Vegas, and I was introduced to Barton, which is an Orton-Gillingham program that parents can do with their own children. And it's also a program that tutors can work with other people's children. So anyway, I began learning how to do that. And one of the amazing things that has come out of tutoring is I have helped so many dyslexic students gain confidence in themselves. Because you might be thinking, I don't understand why these other people who aren't as smart as me can do well, better than me with reading, or do well in school. And that's because dyslexia is more common than you realize. 1 in 5 people have dyslexia. And most dyslexic people are very bright. So it's no surprise that you are bright and realize that you're smarter than a lot of these other kids who can read better than you. But here's the thing about reading. Reading is a skill that we learn, and it is not something that every human being is going to be great at. Reading is like playing tennis or playing hockey or learning how to become a seamstress or a welder. It is a skill that you learn, and some people learn it quicker than others, and some people are better at it than others. A couple hundred years ago, very few people read. It was the religious leaders who read to their parish or their to their congregation. So it wasn't everyone, the everyday person, who was reading stories. It wasn't until recently that everyone was expected to learn to read. And today we are judged by how well we read. which is not the basis of intelligence. Intelligence and ability to read are two very separate things. So in your class of probably 30 students or 25 students, there are likely to be 5 to 6 classmates who are also dyslexic. And there's varying degrees of dyslexia. So someone might be mild and they'll never get help. One of my sons is mildly dyslexic, and I have never helped him learn how to read. I've taught him a few of the tricks or the techniques that I've taught my other kids, but he didn't need any outside help with his reading abilities. So then there's people who are moderate, like myself, who struggle with reading. This is my family. And so 5 of the 6 of us are dyslexic. I've got my son who's moderately dyslexic, myself who's, mildly dyslexic, myself who's moderately dyslexic, my husband and my youngest son are profoundly dyslexic, which means they needed tools in order to learn to read successfully. But now that they have the tools, they're both successfully reading. And I have tutored both my husband and my youngest son and my daughter. And my daughter is profoundly dyslexic. So she has been through, I tutored her. She went through Orton Gillingham tutoring in Texas, and she still struggles and will probably always struggle with reading and spelling because her dyslexia is so profound. But there's varying degrees, so not everyone will struggle like each other. The one thing they say about dyslexia is each one of us have different dyslexia. So it shows up differently in each one of us. So that's important to realize, that no two dyslexics are alike. And unfortunately, most people think that dyslexia is just a reading problem. It is not. Some dyslexics are great readers. They're called stealth dyslexics. I have a student who reads way faster than I can keep up with him because he does not struggle with reading. He struggles with spelling. And reversals are not a common sign of dyslexia. Reversals is actually a visual issue that is very often accompanied with dyslexia, because dyslexia, along with other learning differences, are comorbid. They very often run together. My youngest son has like 8 different neurodiversities. So dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, auditory processing disorder, sensory processing disorder. I believe he's on the spectrum, but he did not, when tested through the doctors, did not come back as such. He also has attention deficit disorder, and I think there's one other thing I can't think of. But anyway, so lots of neurodiversities running alongside of each other. They're like cousins who like to hang out. But anyway, even though dyslexia is different in each one of us, there are some common signs that can help you determine if you have dyslexia. So dyslexic people tend to hold their pencil funny, difficulty reading the clock, saying and remembering the days of the weeks and the months of the year in order. They have a hard time memorizing math facts, poor time management, procrastinate. That should be tend to be good at math until word problems are introduced. Ambidextrous. Some dyslexic people, like my husband, use both their left and their right hand to perform tasks. They read or write letters and numbers in reverse, often directionally confused, left, right, top, bottom. They get lost very easily. That's my youngest son's huge issue. He does not drive yet because he is terrified he's going to get lost, because he already gets lost just walking around. So we keep telling him the GPS will get him where he needs to go, but that's just another thing to focus on. So he has not been eager to learn how to drive. Difficulty learning to tie shoes. That is something back in the days when my kids were first diagnosed, you could find that most dyslexic people experienced. But today, younger kids' shoes don't need tying, so it's not something we as frequently can identify. Learn best with hands-on training. Read or reread words with little to no comprehension. Find putting thoughts onto paper very challenging, or into words very challenging. Onto paper is dysgraphia. Yes, it's hard to come up with the words that you want. Dyslexia means not, and dys means not, and lexia means words. So basically, it's saying you do not have words. Extremely difficult writing and copying work. So copying off the board is really hard. Horrible spelling. That's pretty much the number one with dyslexia. Pretty much all dyslexic people have spelling issues, although I have worked with students who spell pretty well and reading is their issue. So again, not 100%. Most dyslexics are very intelligent, yet have difficulty with reading, writing, or spelling. Slow, choppy readers, and do not test well or have severe test anxiety. Those are some of the common characteristics of dyslexia. So being dyslexic is not all bad. Just because you struggle with these areas doesn't mean that you're a failure or that you can't ever do anything. Dyslexic people may struggle in one area, but we're really strong in other areas. So for me, my gift is entrepreneurism. I have been an entrepreneur as far back as I can remember. I was 10 years old and hanging out with my friend, and we dug out of the trash across the street from where she lived. It was a factory that made these little books, and we dug the little books out of the trash and sold them on her stoop, and for $0.25, and people bought them. And that was my first little business. So here is a list of some childhood hobbies that you may enjoy, and they can lead to some great careers. So robotics team, rock and fossils, nature hunt, scouting, set up a lemonade stand. Let me tell you, these days it's hard to set up a lemonade stand. It's so sad. People don't want to stop and buy lemonade from kids anymore. But you can still do it. You can resell items around your house. You can organize a yard crew and have them go out and do yard work for your neighbors, and you get paid for setting it all up. Explore things. Being mentored is a really helpful way for dyslexic people to thrive. My son Jacob participated at a program called Urban Workshops for 3 years, and then at the end of that he actually volunteered and was mentored, and then at the end of the summer he was hired as a teacher to teach other homeschooled students. He was 17 years old at the time. We graduated him from high school at 17, and he was working after being mentored by them. So mentoring can make a huge difference. Now he has a welding degree or certificate, and he's teaching adults at Urban Workshop how to weld. So painting, hey, my husband can paint with both his hands, so he doesn't get as tired as the rest of us. Photography is a great thing. Making jewelry, building electronics, writing stories, making movies, drawing, chess, hacking. Also puzzles. Some dyslexic people are super gifted with puzzles. We see many dyslexics see things in 3D, so they can just picture things differently than other people. Dyslexics are usually very good at sports or dance. What they find is dyslexics, where their strengths are, they're usually superior to the average person. So these childhood hobbies can lead to careers: mechanical engineer, paleontologist. There's a paleontologist whose name I cannot think of right this second, but he is dyslexic, cannot read, has written several books. I'm sure he dictated them to someone, but he got his doctorate, and he can't even read. And he found the first dinosaur eggs many years ago because he was on the ground crawling around, which none of the neurotypical people would have done that. Entrepreneur, like I said, that's my gift. Computer security expert, artist, architect. NASA will very often hire dyslexic people to employ because we think differently. So options are endless. Sales are huge for dyslexic people. CEOs, video game designer, filmmaker. There are so many options available to dyslexics. One thing you need to realize is you may have to work a little bit harder than your counterparts because it is more of a challenge, because reading is involved in almost everything. Although these days we have the opportunity to listen online rather than having to read everything ourselves. So that's a nice plus. So dyslexic strengths: creative, intuitive, persistent, empathetic, critical thinkers, big picture thinkers, strong reasoning skills, excellent at solving puzzles, excel at oral comprehension. Those are some of the dyslexic strengths. And here are some athletes and musicians who are dyslexic, or were. Some of them have passed. Engineering and mechanics, dancers, scientists. This is the gentleman who is a paleontologist who cannot read. Architects, writers. Agatha Christie was dyslexic and a writer. Artists, all different kinds of arts. So here's another graph that shows many famous dyslexics. And it's endless. So what's your responsibility? You need to share your unique gift with the world. Figure out what your unique gift is, and then work on developing it, becoming better at it. They say, I think it's 2,000 hours at something is what is needed to become really strong at it. So focus on one thing and spend your time and share it with the world. And always remember, dyslexia is a learning difference, not a disability. You are not disabled. You just learn differently, and you need to be taught differently. And the key to being taught differently is Orton Gillingham for reading, writing, and spelling, and multisensory techniques for all your other subjects. And if you're wondering what multisensory techniques are, I did a presentation that covered that a bit more. So I recommend that you check out the presentation on homeschooling your dyslexic child, because that talks about what multisensory is. Also, if you have any questions, you can schedule a call with me at bit.ly/Lexia Learners, APPT. And I'm happy to discuss with you anything I know about dyslexia. I'm eager to share with people and help make life easier for dyslexics and parents of dyslexics and grandparents of dyslexics. So feel free to schedule a call and we can talk about your concerns. And until then, you guys just feel good about yourselves and focus on your strengths.